So I am so happy to introduce you to Valerie Brown. Valerie is an ordained Buddhist Quaker Dharma teacher in the lineage of Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh and the Plum Village tradition. She's a facilitator and executive coach who specializes in leadership development and mindfulness with a focus on diversity, social equity, and inclusion. Valerie is the author of several books. Her latest book, Hope Leans Forward, Braving Your Way Towards Simplicity, Awakening, and Peace, received the Nautilus Gold Award for Eastern Spirituality in 2023. A former lawyer and lobbyist, Valerie transformed her high-pressure 20-year corporate career into serving leaders and nonprofits to create trustworthy, authentic, compassionate, and connected workspaces. An accredited leadership coach, Valerie is the founder and chief mindfulness officer of Lead Smart Coaching, supporting leaders to apply and integrate leadership and mindfulness for greater resilience, greater clarity, and creativity. She's a co-director of Georgetown's Institute for Transformational Leadership. Valerie also leads an annual pilgrimage to El Camino in Santiago, Spain, in order to celebrate the power of sacred spaces. She's a certified Kundalini yoga teacher, engaging leaders to embody somatic wisdom and creativity. And with a very unique Buddhist Christian perspective, Valerie's life has been greatly enriched as a member of the Quaker Religious Society of Friends. Valerie lives in a converted barn and tends a lively home garden in New Hope, Pennsylvania, on the traditional lands of the Lenape Nation. So Valerie will be sharing with us about how we can develop deep spiritual courage and hope during difficult and challenging times in our lives. She'll show us how to cultivate clarity around our true purpose so that we can understand our connection with the larger whole. So welcome, Valerie. It's such an honor to be with you and to soak in your wisdom and your experience. Thank you for being here with us. Before we get started, though, I'd really love to get your thoughts on just what is a mystic? How do you define the term? What does that mean for you?
Jana, thank you so much for this most gracious invitation to be here with a Closer Than Breath audience and to join this amazing summit. It's a great honor and great privilege. I also just want to take a moment to say a very hearty welcome before I jump into your really important question. So I want to welcome people of all gender identities, all gender expressions, whatever your race or culture or ethnicity, that is most welcome here. Whatever your age or stage in life, thank you for being here. Your economic status, your immigration status, all of that is welcome. To our elders and teachers who may be on this call, thank you for being here. And all of the languages that are spoken among all of the people, whatever your body shape and size, your medical condition, whether that's visible or not, all of that, every single part of you is welcome. So again, a deep, deep and hearty welcome to you and to us all. So what a wonderful question about mysticism, Christian mystic in particular. And I have both a Quakerly answer to that and a Buddhist answer to that. So let's begin with the Buddhist perspective on what is a mystic. And this begins with a little story about the Buddha. So when Siddhartha Gautama, or the Buddha, became enlightened, and he was walking around India after his enlightenment, he ran into people that he knew. And, and so some people asked him, they said, "Hey, are you a god?" And the Buddha said, "No." And they asked, "Are you in a reincarnation of a god?" And the Buddha said, "No."
Mhm.
And they asked, "Well, are you a wizard?" And the Buddha said, "No." And so they asked, "Well, are you a man?" And the Buddha said, "No." So they asked, "Well, what are you?" And the Buddha replied, "I am awake."
No.
Right.
Yeah.
So my definition of a mystic, a Christian mystic, is one who is awake, one who has awoken to life. And by that, I mean to live this one precious life, as the great poet Mary Oliver says, to live in a meaningful and fulfilling way, whatever that looks like for you, to create a more just and a more beautiful world. And you may say, well, that's not a bad deal. But the truth is, and we all know this too well, we live in a very fast-paced world where there's a lot of overwhelm, there's a lot of overwork, and it's almost not mind-numbing. And so to live awakened is quite a thing to do.
Mhm.
So from a Quakerly perspective, we believe that each person has that of God within, and each person has access to that spirit of God. And by God, I mean the capacity for love and compassion and peace, right? That we all have the capacity to wake up
Mhm.
to this force of love and compassion that is within us and in the world. And so, how do we do this? So, from a Quakerly perspective, there is a path. From a Buddhist perspective, there is a path too. But from a Quakerly perspective, there is a path of knowing. And by knowing, I don't mean like transactional knowing. I'll do this to get that. But it's a deeper sense of knowing, a kind of mystical path. It's like embarking on a pilgrimage, right? And the first motion in a pilgrimage, and the first motion as we embark on this path, is to yield, right? To yield to the sense of utter certainty. And what this yielding does is open us, right? From a Buddhist perspective, Thich Nhat Hanh, this remarkable teacher, has said, we should ask ourselves a question every day, and that is, are you sure? Are you sure? And that's not to sow seeds of doubt, but to plant seeds of openness. So the first step on this journey of knowing is to yield. The next step is to stay with the experience. Go patiently. In this fast-paced world, we want quick and ready answers. The next podcast, the next audiobook, the next thing, whatever it is. And on this path, we actually are cultivating patience, right? to digest the awareness, the insight that comes to us before we reach for the next thing. We notice, right? To be awake, to notice what rises up, what catches our attention, what may feel peculiar or odd, what may feel like a deep truth that may actually be uncomfortable. And maybe part of that is an awareness that there is bitterness within us. There's rage. There is the feeling of anger, whatever that may be, to notice what rises up, what rings true, what feels perhaps odd or uncomfortable. But allow that to wake up within you and allow that to change you. And so this is the path, the path of contemplation that includes silence and solitude and prayer and all of these elements.
That, that is fascinating, Valerie. Thank you. I love how you offer us both a Buddhist and a Quaker perspective. And it sounds like a mystic is someone who is awake and knows how to stay open to whatever is arising from within um, or arising around us in our circumstances, that we're able to stay open to that and remain awake. So thank you for bringing some clarity to the idea of a mystic or mystical. There's so many different and oftentimes very confusing ideas of what that means. So thank you for that. And with that, I invite you to take the stage now and to share your most important message with us.
Great. Yes.
Beautiful.
So thank you again. Great honor to be here. And it's really my pleasure to share a little bit about my new book, Hope Leans Forward, Braving Your Way to Simplicity, Awakening, and Peace. And during this talk, I'm going to be sharing from my own life experience. And obviously, since I'm sharing from my own life experience, this is a work in progress. I am not checking in as an expert, but as someone who is also, on a learning journey. I'm here learning and growing together with you. So Thich Nhat Hanh, or Thai teacher, as he's often called, has said, that our life is our message. Our life is our message. And as a Quaker, we have an expression that embodies this universal truth, and that is, let your life speak. Let your life speak. Right. So this embodies quite a universal truth. So I'd also say that in giving a talk, this is not an individual thing. It's both an individual and a collective. So we are co-creating this talk together. The way you listen, the way you engage, is the way we create this together. And I'm going to be inviting you to take a moment or two here and there throughout the talk to actually pause for a moment and maybe jot a note, to reflect on what you're learning, what I'm saying, what you're listening to. So I think it was John Dewey who said, we don't learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on our experience. So reflection is really a key element of how we are co-creating this time together. So again, the focus of this talk is on hope as a skill, right? And how that can support us in living a more courageous and more compassionate life together. So we'll begin with a Quaker query. Now, a query is different from a question, right? So often a question can lead to a yes, no, right, or wrong response. Yes, no, right, wrong. That's not what a query is. A query instead, Quaker style, is more like a gut check, right? These are simple queries that you ask throughout your life. It's a kind of spiritual and moral inventory. So the first query is, what does hope mean to you? So just take a moment and ponder that. What does hope mean to you? So one of the things that happened in writing this book, which I began in 2019, was I was hit with a lot of life complications. And I wanted to have hope, but it seemed like hope was really far away. And so I decided, well, let me go to Webster's dictionary and look up the definition of hope. And so that's where I began. So here's what Mr. Webster said about hope. Quote, hope is an optimistic state of mind that is based on an expectation of a positive outcome with respect to events, circumstances in one's life, or the world at large. Well, I really felt that given everything that was happening in the world and continues to happen, that we really needed a much more layered and complex definition of hope to meet the ambiguity, the fragility, and the vulnerability of the times that we are living in. I also felt that hope needs to be situated to include structures and systems that foster injustice and oppression or that promote equity, right? Yes, I agree that an optimistic state of mind is really important, but hope that is overly focused on desire of getting to an outcome really is a recipe for suffering, because we're chasing what we perceive is an end goal, even if that goal is greater peace. So again, our life is our message. So I'll share a little bit from my own life. And this is something I write about in the book. So like many people, I was divorced, and getting divorced was absolutely the last thing I wanted. I was clinging to a very troubled marriage. So I had to really let go of false hope and see reality as it was. And then to focus on, what are my values here? And my values were really about integrity and connection. And staying in the marriage was really an affront to my values of integrity and connection. And so that left me with a choice. What would I do? So it's when we live from this place of values, we are given a choice to choose, right? How is it that we choose to act? So our values are really foundational for cultivating this sense of hope. So, again, hope that is over attached to a goal is really what is problematic. But hope contains many, many elements. It's not a singular state of mind, right? It contains courage. It took courage to leave the marriage, right? it contains fear. The possibility that real disaster would happen. And so that kind of leads me to the writings of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And way back in 1967, in his Christmas sermon, Dr. King said, in describing courage, he used these words. He said, quote, "It is a vitality that keeps you moving." So King famously said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Hence, hope leans forward. This is the nature of hope. But the question is, are we living this hope from our deepest values? Are we aware of our values? Are our values grounded in a mind and a heart of love, what the Buddhists called bodhicitta? And so it's mindfulness, it's concentration and insight that helps us, leads us toward this path of liberation. And again, this isn't easy because of the demands of daily life. But the reflecting on our values doesn't have to be a heavy burden, right? It begins with curiosity. We can take an inventory periodically. We don't have to wait for a crisis to happen. And actually, during the global pandemic, many people did just that. They started looking at their values. How do I really want to live? Asking yourself that, and then moving in the direction of waking up, awakened action. And so this is the basis in the Plum Village tradition for applied ethics. And this is the heart of the teachings of Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh. So applied ethics is the pathway of a moral outcome. And what Thich Nhat Hanh says is that we need to question societal norms and societal values. We need to examine our behavior. And we do this in light of Thay's teaching on interdependence or interbeing, meaning what happens to you, Jana, affects me, and what happens to me is going to affect you, right? That we are interconnected. So with this, we develop a moral inner compass that has mental dexterity, emotional flexibility to be open. So, this takes courage. So several writers whom I've studied and report about in the book speak about hope in this way. Margaret Wheatley, in her essay on hope and fear, says that fear is there and hope is there because the stakes are high. We care. There's risk. We live in a society of gun violence, of climate catastrophe, of racial injustice. These are very high stakes. Joan Halifax, Roshi Joan Halifax, talks about wise hope, which is grounded in radical uncertainty and rooted in what we cannot know. Joanna Macy talks about hope as being active, not passive, right? And again, living from a place of our values. And the writer Rebecca Solnit says that hope is not about denying the realities of the world, right? It's not about looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. Hope and urgency coexist. We need to acknowledge that and then take action. Right? And this is how we move in a skillful way. So let me share with your audience the elements of this skill of hope. And I came to this understanding. As I said, I started to write the book in 2019 in the midst of lots of life complications. But it was in the process of writing this book that I realized that hope is not this flimsy wishful thinking, but it's actually quite muscular. And here are the elements of hope. It is a commitment to practices, many of which your audience will be familiar with: meditation and prayer and solitude, and having an anamkara, a soul friend, someone that you can connect with, that you can trust. It is situated in the present moment, but yet it aspires toward the future. It arises out of the very ground of all of this is uncertain. We don't know. And our life is impermanent. It is all impermanent. And thank goodness it is. Because if it weren't impermanent, a child would never become an adult. And so the ground of this is impermanence. The very act of engaging hope as a skill enlarges us. We become more resourceful, more adaptable. We develop these virtues of courage and patience and readiness. And the very ground of all of this is what Thich Nhat Hanh describes as interbeing. I am connected to you. You are connected to me. So this skill of hope is situated in these factors of waking up. And the Buddhists describe 7 particular factors to wake up to this life that we have. And one of the factors is mindfulness, a quality of grounded awareness. We engage in an active exploration of life, curious, open. There is a quality of energy, right? There is an energy, an effort, as well as ease. And with that effort is what the Buddhists describe as aimlessness and businesslessness. That's a mouthful. So the term businesslessness comes from Master Lin Chi. And aimlessness is often considered a kind of door of liberation or Dharma seal. And I'll speak more about what that means. But essentially, we don't put something out in front of us and chase it down, even if what we want is world peace or to be a better person. So we generate within us this sense of a heart and mind that is joyful. And in a global pandemic, joy feels like a tall order. But as Ross Gay says, maybe what we need to generate is delight, right? And then all of this is resting in a quality of humility in our actions, which gives rise to a kind of tranquility. There is concentration, meaning, as Margaret Wheatley and these other writers have talked about, there's an urgency and there's a capacity to hold that. And all of this is resting in a kind of patience and steadiness and equanimity. So I think it's really important to consider the words of this great Trappist monk, Thomas Merton. And so here is Merton with a very young Thich Nhat Hanh. a very rare image of the two together. And what Merton has given us here in his beautiful essay, Conjectures of a Guilty Bystander, he talks about how we can live in this world and hold the urgency and hold the action simultaneously. He says there is a pervasive form of contemporary violence to which the idealist most easily succumbs: activism and overwork. The rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form, of its innate violence. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone in everything, is to succumb to violence. The frenzy of our activism neutralizes our work for peace. It destroys our inner capacity for peace. It destroys the fruitfulness of our own work because it kills the root of inner wisdom, which makes work fruitful.
Wow. Powerful.
Yeah, so pausing for a moment, maybe reading this over, allowing yourself to rest on a word or phrase, what captures your attention, what resonates here for you. So again, not moving too quickly away and just staying with maybe a word or a phrase that is resonating in your body and in your mind and your heart. And so paying attention to that, noticing that, being awake to that. And so the wisdom continues. These are the words of Shams Tabrizi. Shams, of course, was the spiritual teacher, not student, teacher of Jalaluddin Rumi. And here's what Shams has said about this quality of aimlessness. How do we hold urgency, the good work that we are called to do, with our own quality of inner peace? Shams says, when I run after what I think I want, my days are a furnace of stress and anxiety. If I sit in my own place of patience, what I need flows to me and without pain. From this, I understand that what I want also wants me, is looking for me and attracting me. There is a great secret here for anyone who can grasp it. Consider that. What I want also wants me, is looking for me and attracting me. What if you lived your life that way? What if you lived your life that which you are searching for actually wants you back? That is called a paradigm shift. And so all of this, and yes, this is a lovely image of Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh here in the lead in Plum Village, France, walking meditation with the monks and nuns and visitors at Plum Village Monastery. We are becoming baby bodhisattvas, meaning a bodhisattva, a person who, a being whose heart and mind is situated in love. And so to become a baby bodhisattva, a great being, ask yourself these questions. What are my values? What matters most and why? And what awakened action is being called forth from me? So a big hint, right? This is about what matters. What do you care about? And yes, I'm so thrilled that Hope Leans Forward has won the Gold Award for Eastern Spirituality for this year, 2023, by Nautilus. And yes, it cultivates hope as a skill. We need to pause, reflect, engage, and then choose with purpose. So to recap, hope is contextual. It includes the systems and structures of our society. It is based on our values, which are foundational for cultivating the skill of hope. Hope is not a singular state of mind. It contains many elements. And the basis is applied ethics. It's the pathway to a moral outcome. It is through mindfulness, concentration, and insight that we develop this moral inner compass that is flexible and open. And this is a practice. This is about becoming baby bodhisattvas. To practice compassionate reflection and inquiry. So yes, I'd love to stay connected, and this is how you do that. But I would love to invite you all to go back, cast back to your intention. What did you say yes to? What brought you here to this session? Take a look at that. Let that wash over you. Recall the words of Thomas Merton and Shams Tabrizi. And again, let that wash over your body, mind, and spirit. So with that, Jana, thank you so very much.
Valerie, thank you. That was so rich, so full. I'm so glad this is recorded so that all of us can watch it again, perhaps many times. I know I will, because I really want to go back and unpack so much of what you said. So many insights, so inspiring. So much was really triggered in me that I want to go back and explore, stay open to, and I think it's so important that we understand what you are teaching us about navigating difficult times, learning how to lean into hope and courage, and how we do that. And also how to know how to encourage others to do that. So thank you. Thank you for leading us, for teaching us, for all the remarkable work that you are doing in the world, and leading others to do as well. I would just ask that you share your last screen with us one more time, so that people can can see. I'm not sure people were able to get that down quickly, and I know people are going to want to not only read your book but stay in touch with you. I hope it's okay if people have questions and comments that they could email you. So you're such a jewel and such a blessing to all of us. So thank you for all of us. Yes.
Thank you, Jenna. And again, um, deep gratitude to the Closer Than Breath audience and everyone at Closer Than Breath. And a big shout out to Broadleaf Books, my
Yes.
publisher there, and
Yes.
amazing, amazing publishing house. And I could never have achieved what I did with the book without the folks at Broadleaf.
At Broadleaf, we are so honored that they are sponsoring this event. They have been awesome to work with. So I know what you speak of to a small extent. And congratulations on your beautiful book and your beautiful sharing, Valerie. God bless you.
And to you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.